Hello and welcome to Aha Moment Unconscious Contagions. This is based on Aha Moment Monday. And if you're not receiving your Aha Moment Mondays every Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern, then sign on to jrang.com and you will get them in your inbox just like magic. And Aha Moments are an opportunity to shift perspective on everyday issues. And why would you want to do that? Well, we kind of work on autopilot. We're living on autopilot. So we're conditioned by so many factors, right from the time of before birth, actually, and from our parents, from our schools, from our every mentor that we have had, our politicians, our bankers, everyone is influencing our behavior to some degree, as are the people that we're hanging around with, right? Our colleagues, our friends, our families. There's so much that is imposing on our conditioning. And I say imposing in a sense that much of it is so unconscious that it's coming in from all directions. And a lot of it we're absorbing without really having any kind of thought barriers or anything to critically think, does this actually align with my values, or is this what I should be doing? So we want to check ourselves and we want to have a little bit of disruption sometimes. So that's why we're doing these videos, to elaborate on the Aha Moment Mondays and maybe just shift something that you're doing unconsciously and do something that's a little more empowering. Okay, so what I'm going to do, as per usual, is I'm going to call up the Aha Moment Monday that was published. We're going to read through it, and then we're going to unpack some of the critical elements of it and send you off in a great, empowering way. Sound like a plan? Okay, here we go. Let's find this aha now. That's not it. Here it is. Okay, unconscious contagions. Have you ever been the victim of an unsuspecting contagion, like a yawn? Is it possible that by simply reading about a yawn, you will want to yawn? Researchers say yawning has to do with the temperature of the brain. When it gets too far off normal, yawning can help cool it down. Healthline agrees with my theory that yawning is a way of waking or resetting. According to Healthline, the motion helps stretch the lungs and their tissues, and it allows the body to flex its muscles and joints. It may also force blood towards your face and brain to increase alertness. So many contagions, like laughter and applause, have had an effect without us even being aware or in control. I think this is what culture is. We do what everyone does simply by being the empathetic, community-oriented, influential individuals we are by nature. And when culture is infused with habits of kindness, responsibility, support, and growth, it operates on a high vibration of love and abundance. Conversely, when culture breeds selfishness, greed, division, and control, the distance it creates is like a nasty virus. In fact, Indigenous people have a term for it: Wetiko. Wetiko is an Algonquin word for cannibalistic spirit that is driven by greed, excess, and selfish consumption. Writes Alnur Lada in Martin Kirk in Cosmos. The Wetiko virus is what Indigenous people claimed was the chronic infection of the European colonists. Wetiko, they say, short-circuits the individual's ability to see itself as an enmeshed and interdependent part of a balanced environment and raises the self-serving ego to supremacy. End of quote. The Pilgrims saw the tame and orderly land of the natives as wild and savage, and rationalized destruction of the name in the name of civilization. The conundrum society's shadow, as Carl Jung calls it, is Wetiko infected. So our collective consciousness is driven by fear. Yet in the process of serving humanity, we serve ourselves. How do we free ourselves of the virus of embedded selfishness and upgrade to the frequency of our entanglement? Aha, become aware. We can't change what we're not aware of, but we understand the hand-down selfish tendencies born of a belief that we are separate from all living creatures. Only then can we break the cycle. Our individual minds and bodies are part of the collective. We appear separate, but we are not. All life forms are exchanging energy always. Become aware of your actions, be they automatic, in sync with others, or driven by conscious awareness, and decide to be true to those that align with your highest good. You will not only feel whole and connected, you will be unstoppably electric. If a simple yawn can infuse oxygen into one's individual after another, imagine the ripple effect of a little courageous action. Wetiko. Have you heard that term before? I just am checking with you. When I started doing more and more research, when I noticed that society was sort of complicit to something that I was questioning, and a few others were as well, I couldn't help but, uncover all aspects of society that were pointing to what was happening as a level of mind control. And so Wetiko, I found Wetiko, the term. Now, I wrote this first aha probably 2.5 years ago, and I just updated a little bit for us right now. And I thought it was really a conversation worth having again. Culture habit is always a conversation worth having, because we are creatures of habit. We that's a buzz phrase that we use, but it's true. And the way that our brain wires itself for habit is sort of an energy saving mechanism that we use. So when we do something, we wire a pathway to it so that when we need to do it again, it's already started. So the more we do it, the more the pathway is narrowed. And of course, repetition is the key to learning, right? When we repeat something over and over, or something is repeated to us, then it becomes part of our nature, part of our culture, part of our habit, that we just do it. But just because something is repeated doesn't mean it's true or it's right or it belongs with us, right? So the term Wetiko that the Indigenous people used was for these settlers that came in, and as the aha said, they saw the land as savage. They saw it as untapped. They saw it as wild, and they wanted to tame it in their way, as opposed to living in balance with nature. So their balance was about, let's rip up the land and let's build concrete houses and everything. And I'm not saying that that some of that there's not some good stuff about it. I mean, we certainly live comfortably, but at what cost? And the cost this isn't an environmental conversation. This is a conversation about our culture and about interdependence. So if you are thinking at any given time that you are isolated as a being just because your physical body is separate than somebody else's physical body, then you're missing who you are as a divine creation. So you are a spirit first, and this is your shell. This is your home in order to operate and fulfill your purpose interdependently with everyone else. So your purpose is always about what your soul is bringing to humanity. Everything we do is all about everyone else. So this greed and selfishness that the Indigenous people saw by the settlers ripping up the land and competing and taking for themselves without much concern for how it affected not only the land but the other living beings, the animals, the species, the fish, and of course their fellow man. So I think when we lived in smaller villages, maybe we had, we were a little more considerate of one another in our village in totality. And in smaller communities, that still exists. But the bigger the community, I live just outside of Toronto, and it doesn't matter where you go in Canada, they will always be a little kinder and a little more transparent than they will in Toronto. And the reason being is that Toronto is a highly dense, competitive city. And so it's a big dog eat dog kind of city. And it's the largest city in Canada. So it breeds that kind of competitive, isolated, selfish kind of, I got to get mine tendency, right? That is the culture. And so it is not unusual that across the country that Torontonians are not loved. And it's not that they're not good people, because I think if you pull those people out of the city and you put them into another environment, then we said in the aha, there's lots of different ways that your culture can affect you. And if you have a culture that is kind and loving, and that it's going to breed that tendency in you, because that's a natural tendency. But if you are in a culture that is competitive and you got to get yours and you got to build and you've got every man for himself kind of thing, then you are naturally going to absorb that. So the point of the aha is to understand Wetiko, to understand the concept of selfishness and greed, and then to decide, this is a part of the aha, does that belong with me? Is that who I am? Am I a selfish, greedy person that is only going out to serve me? Well, I always say you need to serve yourself in order to serve humanity. There's no question about that. You can't pour from an empty cup. I mean, you have to be whole, you have to be on purpose, and you have to be following what it is that your soul is calling you to do. So it is kind of a you first, me first, everyone first. However, we are a mesh, we are entangled, we are all connected with one another. So everything we do, there is a rippling effect to it, right? So let's keep that in mind. I hope that you enjoyed this aha, and like, share, subscribe to everything that we're doing, and I look forward to chatting with you next week. As always, succeed deliberately.